Yo, what's going on, guys? And today I wanted to talk about the Toronto Raptors, who they're low-key one of my potential surprise teams. I know it's unlikely, but if Scotty Barnes really takes that next step, Grady Dick looks like he can be maybe like a 15, 17 point per game scorer. He's really looking solid for them. And they have RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly, and Scotty Barnes. Just those three guys are 320 point per game scorers. They have a top 15 center in Jakob Poeltl. So for me, it's really not far-fetched to look at a team that, again, Quickly, 20 point per game scorer. Last year for them, he was also a facilitator that I think people didn't really realize that this guy was passing the rock. But again, Scotty Barnes, 20 point per game scorer. RJ Barrett was averaging 22 for them. Emmanuel Quickly averaged like 19 for them. And they have people who need to fill up. Kelly Olynyk was averaging 13. Jakob Poeltl's, again, a top 15 center. I know Bruce Brown's hurt, but he's a guy who could come out and maybe do a little bit of something for them. So, and I think they have a point of attack defender, Davion Mitchell. People forget that a few seasons ago, Chris Boucher was a Sixth Man of the Year candidate. Jamal Sheed looks like an animal. So does Jonathan Mogbo. And I think, having Garrett Temple as like a mentor is great. I love all three two-way guys in Jameson Battle, Ulrich Shamanchi, and DJ Carton. So I want to hear your guys' thoughts. Am I out of my thoughts for thinking this team is a surprise, play-in team? I just can't see them being better than the play-in, but I do think that they can be a team that will probably catch you off guard in terms of being better than one would expect. Again, if I had to say so myself, we know that they're in a period of transition after trading Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby, and now with Scotty Barnes, Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett are locked down, and I think they have a core. Now, the offseason's been relatively quiet. I think Davion Mitchell was a solid guy to bring in, and his defensive intensity and playmaking should help the Raptors bench unit and just bring better defense. I think they may still surprise the Eastern Conference as they aren't expected to contend immediately. The combination of Barnes, Barrett, Quickly, as well as the internal development of their players, could help to exceed expectations. Now, Toronto's obviously clearly focused on the long game and building a roster that can compete in the future, while using the season to evaluate the pieces that they have in place is probably the best thing that they could do. I just wanted to say that, I think it's a choice, and it's one that I'm wondering if it's going to lead to a bright future, which I do hope it does, because I think this is a good team. Now, I want to hear your guys' thoughts. Is Masai Ujiri potentially the problem? I just feel like a lot of Toronto fans aren't necessarily the biggest fan of his. So I want to hear your guys' thoughts on that, but let's get to the rest of the video.
Really, what we're looking at expectation-wise and just this team. So like I said, they're in this flux because I think they're good enough to be a play-in team. Look, this is a team that I think when you look at the situation that they're in, I think the biggest thing with a team like this, post free agency and all this good stuff, is when you look at a team like the Raptors, Jalen McDaniels and Gary Trent went out and they committed a ton of money to the future. $224 million to Scotty Barnes, $175 to Emmanuel Quickly, both 5-year deals. And aside from that, they're relatively quiet. And I wouldn't call this a rebuild. This is a retool, changing of the guards, because yes, they moved on from Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby, and they're going to be heavily relying on Darko Rajakovic, their coach, to develop their players, especially a guy and you think that Davion Mitchell and these other guys that they brought in that I'll put on the screen, they're going to have to, because look, they're expecting Scotty Barnes and RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley to continue this trajectory. I think they want Olynyk and Pirtle and Bruce Brown and Boucher to be the adults in the room, as well as Gary Temple, even though Gary Temple won't play the other guys well. And then they're hoping that Grady Dick, that what we saw from him in the second half of the season continues. Ochai Agbaji, they seemingly believe he's now a small ball forward more than a wing player. He also takes a jump. And then they're hoping that the young guys from Sheed, Walter, Mogbo, and then even some of these two-way guys develop into serviceable players. I think the biggest thing when you look at the Toronto Raptors at this point in the development of their players is that I think the biggest thing, and I think the biggest thing when you look at this team, first off, I want to say Yardbarker did a really good job of listing 3 questions. Davion Mitchell, out of all the guys they got out this offseason in their moves, can Davion Mitchell become the guy that he thought he was? He was a defensive-minded guy, and he didn't really fit into Mike Brown's system, but Davion Mitchell is that lockdown defender, pit bull type defender that's what he was advertised out of college, okay? Even if he doesn't become the shooter or the scorer that he was in college, where I think his final season he was like 15 points a game at 40% from 3, legit putting up numbers. If that never happens, that's okay. But in 21 to 22, there was a 22-game stretch to end the season. Yeah, he was shooting 29% from 3, but he was still a 14-point per game scorer with 6 assists a night. Obviously, that was his rookie season, and this past season, even post All-Star break, where he was putting up 7.5 points, 2 assists, 2 rebounds, and shooting 50% from the field on 6 field goal attempts a night, with 3 of those being from 3, and he was hitting 41.6% of them. All right, so, and even as a starter last year, the numbers weren't great, but it's still that 7.5 points, like 3 assists numbers. So I do believe that when you have a team, you have to have a lockdown defender, and Davion Mitchell at this point, even if he doesn't come around as an offensive player, maybe as a scorer, I think he can be a passer and a creator. I think he still has that room to become that lockdown defender that this team needs as a point of attack defender, who he's shown that can immediately translate. Now, next up, can the young trio of Quickley, Barrett, and Barnes be good enough to go for a play-in? Like, is that a team that actually is playing worthy? Can they compete for a spot there? I think yes. I think it's dependent on how do we make sure that this team is able to, Quickley, Barrett, and Barnes look like 3 bona fide scorers in terms of 20-point per game scores. So if you're able to get 70 points between those 3 dudes and then have the rest of the unit figure it out, that's not great. I mean, that's great. That's better than great. And with the lower half of the Eastern Conference projected to be wide open, the Raptors should have enough talent to challenge the play-in spot at a minimum. And if they really are that good, they could be the 6th seed. I think a lot of it's going to have to hinge on Barnes. Last year, he shot 5 threes a game at 34.1%. And clearly, Coach Rajakovic wants his star player to improve his perimeter shot, which will open up the drive game and allow him to beat and attack coverages better. And as he enters his 4th season, Barnes is obviously probably, we like to see him shoot north of 36%. So I'm excited. I think this is a good team, and they're heading in the right direction. They got their heads on right. I think it's just a matter of time. Seriously, it is a matter of time with how this team is coming out, when they're going to break. I think it's all going for them in the right direction. I do believe that there needs to be more done, and we can't tell what needs to be done until we see this season play, because it's such a new team. I want to hear your thoughts down below, but that's it for me, guys. Hope you guys enjoy. Peace.